whenever you...
I love it.
Poppoff makes you think.
I can't believe you just said that.
Poppoff links to lifestyle.
If you're happy, you'll be successful, you'll have the right relationships, and you'll make choices that are healthier for you.
Poppoff makes you smile.
He said, I don't want you pulling his tail or riding him or sitting on him. He said, and if you do that, he said, I will give you a Lassie puppy next year.
Are you serious? Did you? Well, did you get one?
Oh, yes, I did.
And now it's time to pop off with Mary Jane Popp.
And it is that time again. Welcome to the show. Hi, Mary Jane Popp here. It's pop-off time, and boy, are we going to do that today. Since we're getting really close to the end of the year, I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk with someone who can maybe help us with the holiday blues. So a little bit later on, Ray Luskan is going to be joining us. We need to talk about how we can be more creative, we can be more active, instead of just sitting around and crying in your beer, if you know what I mean. So hopefully we can give you some tips on that a little bit later on. But before we do, the movie Concussion with Will Smith, it's kicking up a lot of dust and hasn't even come out yet. It's coming out on Christmas Day, which I thought was kind of unusual, but maybe they'll make more of an impact that way. But you've heard me talk about concussions and the problems with concussions, not only with like IEDs in the military, but kids and any kind of sporting events. It seems to be growing like with leaps and bounds, and it's scary because it can ruin your whole life. And we're talking about very, very young people that are going to have these problems. So we want to make sure that we give you the correct information. Then the decisions have to be yours. See, I don't mind if an adult wants to play a sport and make a decision, because I know they make millions of dollars every year in football and basketball and all that. But as an adult, you make a decision. But if you're 5, 6, 7 years old and you're playing these sports and bouncing your head around, what is that going to do to you the rest of your life? Well, hopefully we can answer some of your questions and maybe, just maybe, work around people helping with them with their concussions and not having to do it with drugs and other kinds of methods, if you know what I mean, because that ruins your life too. Hang in there with us. It's Poppoff. You know we do. Well, again, we need to know. That's what we try to do on Poppoff on a regular basis. So, again, as I mentioned, the movie Concussion's coming out this Friday, which is Christmas, starring Will Smith on the true story of head trauma in football. And they also use the NFL logo, which really surprises me because I didn't think they'd get away with it, to be honest with you. But concussions go much deeper than just that story, from children to sports to military hit by IEDs. Study of this phenomenon can be, debilitating. But it's so important because of the impact of concussions. Well, Dr. Mary Lee Esty has studied many cases of the impact of concussions, and Carol Shiflett is a science and technical writer with a background in earth sciences. Now, together, they penned Conquering Concussion, Healing TBI Symptoms with Neurofeedback and Without Drugs, which is fascinating to me. Dr. Esty, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And Carol, you welcome to the show too.
Thank you very much, Mary Jane.
Okay, Dr. Esty, let's define, when we say concussion, what does that mean? Is it one type of thing or is it different forms?
Well, there's a big continuum of injury. There, of course, is the term traumatic brain injury out there, TBI for short. Mm-hmm. But every TBI starts with a concussion, and it still remains interesting to me how people will say that their child had only a concussion. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness it wasn't a traumatic brain injury. Well, it is, but it's at hopefully the lesser end of the continuum.
Unless they continue doing it, right?
Well, when you keep hammering your head, something's going to happen. It's interesting too that in historically back a couple thousand years BC, there are things in some of the old papyrus writing about trying to figure out what happened when someone was killed by getting hit in the head. So the interest goes way back. More interesting to me was a description around the not too long 1,000 or 2,000 1 or 200 years AD, that in Latin the term commotion in the brain was the term, and I think that's really good. Concussion is kind of an abstract concept, but just imagine your brain is rattling around in there, and that is what happens. It causes damage.
Well, see, what I don't understand is that they talk about all these, we're going to have padding in the helmets, and we're going to have this in the helmet, and that, and then neck braces. Your brain is still bouncing around in your head, though, right?
Yeah. There's, I know a doctor, a biomedical engineer who studies and creates ejection seats.
Oh, yeah.
And the forces there are just enormous. Mm-hmm. And he says there is no way to create a helmet that will prevent a concussion, because anytime you're falling through space or something hits you hard, the brain is going to bounce inside. So you have a helmet on. And if anything, the helmets kind of seem to make people feel like they're not going to get hurt.
Yeah, it's secure.
But these little tiny kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, with these heavy helmets on and these tiny necks, goes against all of the research that the brain injury research group at Boston University is saying. Boys should not play football until they have hair in their armpits, because what that means is the neck muscles are now much stronger, and they'll not be as badly damaged when they get hit. But if you keep getting hit,
well, it's bouncing around against it's bouncing around against your skull. I don't care what the padding is on the outside; it's still bouncing against the skull.
And the inside has razor sharp bones that stick out and tear the brain.
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
It's not a nice smooth surface. It would be much better if it were.
Yeah, Carol, I got to ask you too, because we're not only we're talking about a gamut of ages and a gamut of sports and what can happen to a person, a child. That's the one thing that bothers me more than anything else, because again, as an adult, you make a decision, hopefully an informed decision. If you decide you want to go out there and bat your head around, there was a story about Odell Beckham, and he actually put his head down like a bull, and went and butted heads with somebody. You're eventually going to have a problem, but at least he's an adult. I hope he just doesn't hurt anybody else, but if you want to hurt yourself, fine. But a child, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't care if it's baseball, basketball, or soccer for that matter. You're bouncing your head around, and your brain is bouncing around inside of it, right?
Right, and that's not all there is to it. You may also be damaging your neck. And the neck here is not unrelated. It is not trivial.
Oh, absolutely. And because I have a nuclear chiropractor who comes on my show every couple of months, et cetera, kind of updating us on things. And he said it's sort of like a lollipop. It's this thin little bone in the neck and into the spine that's holding this, 8 or 10 pound weight on top of it.
12.
12, okay, whatever. I know some heads are bigger than others.
Some are bigger than others. Think of a bobblehead. The bobblehead sitting in the back of the car window.
Yeah.
It's a pretty accurate description of what happens with a child.
Yeah. And as an adult, you would think common sense, don't let the kid play, like you said, till they have, Dr. Esty said, hair under their arms so that their neck is at least developed. Something has to be developed. So how do we get this message over to people that you got to be more careful, Carol?
Well, Mary Jane, you just keep talking.
Oh, I do. Believe me, I talk till I'm blue in the face, but it's amazing. Now, Dr. Esty, I got to ask you about this. Is there a difference between the kind of concussion we're talking about in sports as opposed to the concussion, or is it TBI that we're talking in the military from, say, an IED?
There certainly can be. What is not different, a difference between civilian and military folks, is the falling, getting hit, motor vehicle rollovers. They have a lot of those.
Oh, yeah.
Basic training.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Basic training, yeah. Some of the academies require that their students be knocked out so they know what it feels like.
Oh, my. Oh, wonderful.
So can't graduate unless you've got a TBI.
So you, a concussion gives you, your diploma.
Yeah, and good luck with that.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, what are some of the symptoms?
The difference with the military is the blast injuries.
Gotcha.
Think of a blast injury like a fan, maybe. Every time the blade goes around, you can't even see it. In a blast injury, the high pressure is followed immediately in, milliseconds or less by a vacuum, and that wave goes through the body. So every organ in the body, including the blood being pumped into the brain, is under high pressure and the vacuum, so the organs are moving back and forth, and the brain really, really suffers. I have an article where they liken it to having a stroke.
Oh, wow.
But lots and lots of mini strokes within, a few seconds.
Mm.
So the damage is, and a concussion is called often an invisible wound, which can be true because you look okay, but the symptoms tend to be invisible because every single one of them can be attributed to, your mother dropped you on the head, or you're just getting older. That's a really good one for a lot of dogs. You're in your 30s and your memory's failing. You're just getting older.
Well, we're seeing a lot of sports figures that are retiring very early because they're afraid of I guess they call it CTE. Is that the terminology for it?
Right.
But they don't know you have CTE until after you're dead and they do an autopsy. So it's like you better get out.
But the path to get to that autopsy is pretty awful.
Really? Yeah.
The families really, really struggle, and I've talked with retired NFL players, and they're terrified they're going to get it, and they won't let their children play football.
Amazing. So
you take the Manning family, Archie Manning, the dad, with Eli and Peyton, two of the top quarterbacks. He did not let his boys play until they were much older. They could not play contact sports, which may be why they're so much better than some others.
Could be. Well, they still got their brain intact. I got to ask you, what are some of the symptoms? What do we look for in problems that are caused from a concussion?
How much time have you got?
Well, give me the abbreviated version.
Shall I read the list?
Yeah. Just give me some of the things we should look for.
Don't read all of it. We'll be here forever.
We have an entire page. You have the excerpt there, Mary Jo, on Mary Jane. I'm sorry, on page 38. But it's an entire page, and this is so far beyond what we're often told. Well, you may feel a little headachy and maybe a little tired for a few days, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, we're talking now. This doesn't happen to everybody, but you're talking the very real possibility of memory problems, especially short-term. That's used as a test for brain injury. Perseveration, where people keep repeating or doing the same thing over and over. Slowed thoughts, difficulty finding words, decreased focus, concentration. You just can't make sense of things anymore. Problems with organization, sequencing, decision-making. All of a sudden, it's hard to cook dinner.
Wow.
Or shop. Spatial disorientation, loss of sense of direction, loss of old familiar skills, ability to remember dreams, headaches, nausea, body pain. That is something that is hugely different and is starting to come out, is not only awareness of concussion, but awareness of migraine as a symptom. And
really?
This is, to me, is just huge. If I could say how this got started, back in 2011, I just finished my book on migraine, brains and bodies, and I sent a copy to Mary Lee. And I was thanking her for her nearly eliminating my lifelong migraine. And she liked it so much that she asked me, could she hire me to write up information for her concussion clients who were frightened and confused about what was happening to them.
Wow.
Now,
I wanted a little brochure.
She wanted a brochure, and I talked her into a book.
That's okay, because we needed to have the discussion. Because, I mean, some of the things you mentioned, like fatigue, becoming
Terrible
very
fatigue,
sleepy,
crashing fatigue,
emotional
insomnia,
Yes.
roller coaster emotions, or even things like obsessive talking. Not like
Yes.
me, I obsessively talk, but that has
Obsessive
nothing to do with
talking,
it.
Obsessive writing. I mean, Howard Hughes, a wonderful example. You know, 7-page, 14-step, or was it a 14-page, 7-step, I forget, set of instructions to his staff on how to open a can of peaches.
Oh, my God. Really?
You know, yeah, and
impulsiveness,
impulsiveness,
taking risks.
And
I
you know
just
what,
finished treating.
ladies, you know what the most frightening part of it is? They don't know why.
No, you don't know why, and very often they just put you on antidepressants.
There you go. Oh, now let's talk about that. Dr. Esty, we're talking about this thing called neurofeedback, and that you don't use drugs, because that's the first thing people do. They put you on a drug. And sometimes they don't even know what the heck they're putting you're on the drug for anyway. So what do you mean by neurofeedback? What is that?
Neurofeedback is a kind of treatment that comes under the heading of biofeedback. There are lots of different kinds of biofeedback. Any kind of feedback that addresses symptoms, like we're talking about here, is using technology of some kind to feed back information to the client who may have come for headache, very common, or the memory problems, the inability to focus. And so there's an attachment between the head and the computer, and on the screen, the therapist has picked something that will tell the client whether they're helping their brain to function better than it has been. Because when people are symptomatic, there is an imbalance in the way the brain is producing its own energy. So no matter how hard you try to remember something, you cannot will it to happen. When the injury has occurred so that the transmission wires inside the brain can't send signals where they need to go.
Short-circuited.
I mean, how many times have you tried to remember a name? That's a very simple thing. But if you can't remember what you read, you're going to lose your job.
Right.
You lose your job. Somebody else in the family has to make it up. Or you end up homeless. Poverty is a common outcome of chronic problems following it. So biofeedback, neurofeedback is just extremely helpful in regaining function.
But can you?
Huge number of people who are homeless or incarcerated.
Let's talk about that.
had TBI.
Let's talk about this. Can they really reverse the injury and what's the results of that injury in a concussion by doing the biofeedback, or is it just kind of stopping it from getting it worse?
No, in almost all cases. I mean, nothing helps absolutely everybody, but I've treated almost 3,000 people now, and there are many neurofeedback people out there across the country, and there are organizations where you can go find a provider. It is more successful than anything else. I think it's fair to say that you've got an 80-90% success rate across experienced providers. And there's no medication that works like this. I've got published research in the Journal of Neuropsychiatry, for example, with our Iraq-Afghanistan veterans, getting off of sometimes huge amounts of medication, and it's continuing. We're still doing this research.
Why is it that we don't have something that can tell us, like an MRI or a CAT scan or something, to see that there's a problem?
Well, because they're not sensitive enough yet. This happens at a cellular level. Until now, possibly, at the University of Pittsburgh, there is a new high-definition imaging machine, a David Okonkwo. If you get the September issue of Discover magazine, there's an article called Broken Cables, and for the first time ever, they can actually take pictures of broken fibers in the brain.
Really?
That's never been possible before. So unless an injury is physically so big that it can be imaged, people come out saying, "Oh, it's normal." Well, that's good. That just means you didn't have some huge internal injury. But I'm really excited about this new imaging, and they're still doing research with it, but it's going to change people's lives, because if you don't have, if you look okay, just try to win a lawsuit or get damages from being rear-ended and horribly whiplashed, or like the guy whose nerve fiber, the neurons are imaged here, fell 30 feet from a cell tower. But he looks okay, right? So workman's comp, good luck.
Yeah. No, I've been there. I know what you mean. Now, out of curiosity, Carol, we talk about the problems that the person has, but it can destroy their lives completely, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, divorce, poverty, addiction, violence. We don't even know why some people all of a sudden turn violent. It could be from a concussion, right?
It can be, and one of the really funny things about it is how poorly it's recognized. A lot of times, Mary Lee's talked about this, and I've seen it, that you very often, a lot of marriages have been saved by this technique, not because of the treatment, but because of the map. And looking at the map and seeing, oh my goodness, there's a problem. I thought she was just doing this to annoy me.
Yeah, to tick you off. Yeah.
Like they can't seem to find their way. They forget things. They drop things. Can't seem to remember how to cook anymore. Or a football player was telling me the other day of his wife who was ready to divorce him. She'd send him to the store for mayonnaise, and he'd come back with a can of green chilies.
Oh.
And obviously, just doing this to upset her, and marriages have a problem when you look perfectly fine, but you don't want to go to work and you can't remember this, and you burn the dinner, and it just doesn't work.
And you tend to try and hide it.
Of course you do, because you think you're going crazy.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to know that you're going crazy. And so a lot of that leads to just, you see a lot of people that will spend the next year or two sitting in the basement in the dark doing nothing but playing computer games.
Wow.
Hour after hour after hour.
I know a woman who has a PhD. She was in a pretty bad car accident, but she looked okay. And her husband told me that she's just so irritable. Could you possibly do something?
Yeah.
And so I did one treatment, and it turned out they were headed right out to do some cross-country skiing. And when they came back, he came to me, he called me, and he said, "You wouldn't believe what happened. We were out in the snow, beautiful, and my wife stopped, and suddenly she said, 'I know what day it is.'"
Oh.
I know what day it is. It
Something
had been
that's
2 months.
simple.
She said, "I was scared to tell anybody because I was sure I was going crazy."
Oh, bless her heart. See,
but she looked okay, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she looked fine. Yeah.
You can fake it.
Well, of
really
course.
Fake it.
And we just don't want to admit. I mean, let's face it, this country is based on, God forbid you should tell anybody that you're failing, in anything, whether it's health or mind or whatever it happens to be. We just don't accept these kinds of things. And yet, if we would just accept them and do something about it, they can do like her. I know what day it is.
Yeah, I want people to turn color in some gradated degree to how badly your memory is working. But
sure,
as long as you look okay, then you should get a hobby.
Well, do you think that this might also have something to do with Alzheimer's?
Well, Alzheimer's is not the same as CTE.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the really startling findings. One of Omalu's first findings was he was startled when he had Webster's brain preserved. When he first opened up the skull and realized that it was not Alzheimer's like he thought it was. The brain looked perfectly normal on the outside. Your Alzheimer brain shrinks. This one looked fine. It was fine.
So it
and
could, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so it could be an offset of that? It acts like Alzheimer's, but it's not?
It's not.
Well, some of the symptoms may seem
are the same. Yeah.
Similar.
Gotcha. By the way, do you have a website? Do you ladies have a website?
Oh, yes.
Carol?
on our, I can give you one here, which might be of great interest because we have, at the moment, I think 4 or 5 videos.
On the website?
Yes,
Okay.
2 are of the veterans who've been treated recently, and it's really quite moving what's happened to them.
Well, let's give that website.
Okay, there's a YouTube. You get on YouTube and search Saving Our Heroes.
Saving Our Heroes, okay.
You'll come. There's another one, N like never, R, D like dog, A, fund.org. Both of those have the same video.
Okay. Do you have...
One is of a woman who had 2 classroom, she's a teacher, had 2 really weird basketball things hit her head and hadn't been able to teach for 10 years, diagnosed with fibromyalgia and memory horrible.
Wow.
And it's just a wonderful testament. She talks about what she's been through, and her husband, too. It's really very nice.
Now, Carol,
Mary,
where can they... Oh, go ahead.
Are these, Mary Lee, are these not on the Brain Wellness and Biofeedback site?
They may be, but that gets confusing, so I think 2 is enough.
Okay, so, but Carol, how do they get the book, Conquering Concussion?
How do they get the book? Well, the usual way, it's in stores, or you can get it at Amazon.com, and there are some excerpts in there from, especially starting out with historical injuries, which we found interesting, from Henry VIII to Elvis Presley.
Wow.
Starting up into the section on sports and what the CTE staining and dysfunction looks like in the brain.
Right.
Also, Mary Jane, for people to be able to find a provider, there are websites, too, in particular, IS like Sam, N like never, R, ISNR.org.
Okay.
And BCIA.org.
Okay.
And there's a third one, AAP like Peter, B like boy.org.
Fantastic.
And all of those will have some providers listed. Because they're all over the country. They're all over the world.
Well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for taking the time with us today. It goes by really fast, but at least we get people thinking about it, and that's the main thing. So, Dr. Esty, thank you so much for being with us. Carol, thank you so much for being with us. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep talking about it.
Yes, please.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
And happy holidays to both of you.
You too, Mary Jane.
Bye-bye,
And
Doc.
all your listeners.
Thank you. Searching for the truth on Poppoff. That's just what we do. Thinking about replacing your windows or patio doors? Don't think anymore. Make the move. We did, and what a difference it's made in our home with Brothers Home Improvement. Aesthetic beauty, top-tier quality, soundproofing, security, and 45% more energy efficient. We love our new windows. Hi, Mary Jane Popp here. The process from beginning to end was perfect. No subcontractors, lifetime warranties, no high-pressure sales, and installation masters. In one day, our home had a completely new look. Brothers is a true family business, owned and operated by 9 sisters and brothers, always striving for your complete satisfaction and great prices, too. Brothers Home Improvement has made a difference for over 50,000 customers. That's 50,001. Me. Check senior discounts, too. Brothers Home Improvement is ranked among the top nationwide by qualified remodelers. Call today, 916-724-1480 for your free estimate. 916-724-1480. That's 916-724-1480. Brothers Home Improvement. And brother, it's satisfaction guaranteed. Honest. Do you love to read, but you've got books piling up collecting dust? Hi, Mary Jane Popp here. Why not take them to the Almost Perfect Bookstore? Kelly Elmer will buy them back or trade for new books. Buy, sell, and trade at one stop, the Almost Perfect Bookstore. And you can save 50 to 60% on books that have been traded in. There's even a section for books featured on the Poppoff radio show. It's perfect in these economic times. Why keep books you don't want when you can sell them or trade them in? Don't look for a small book nook either. It's huge, with books on just about any subject you can think of. Once you try it, you'll know it's the perfect way to go. The Almost Perfect Bookstore, 1901 Douglas Boulevard in Roseville. That's 1901 Douglas Boulevard in Roseville. Got questions? Call Kelly at 916-781-7935 or log on to almostperfectbookstore.com. Kelly calls it the Almost Perfect Bookstore, but it's absolutely perfect. The Almost Perfect Bookstore in Roseville.
Just because the sky is blue doesn't mean the air is healthy. Poor air quality affects everyone, but children, pregnant women, athletes, and the elderly are at the greatest risk for things like asthma, bronchitis, heart attack, and permanent lung damage. Be prepared. sign up for Air Alert at sparetheair.com. You'll get a daily email with the regional air quality forecast and be notified when air quality is bad. Protect your health and the ones you love. Visit sparetheair.com.
What if I told you your pain could disappear? No medications, no expensive equipment, just a few minutes a day with exercises provided by Symmetry, postural alignment technology, which brings you harmony, rhythm, and balance. Leanne Carson is a certified massage therapist for some 10 years. She's been doing Symmetry for the last few months, so what has Symmetry done for you, Leanne?
Well, I've had chronic back pain since I was 12, and nothing has helped me until I found Symmetry.
Has Symmetry helped your clients in practice?
In the same way it's helped me, my clients now have something that they can use to heal themselves. I simply use massage as a compliment.
Now, would you recommend Symmetry to anyone in any kind of pain?
Yes, absolutely.
There you have it. Sounds unbelievable, but it really works. Call founder Patrick Mummy at 916-467-7764 for your 90-minute evaluation and a full set of prescribed exercises, all free. Nothing to lose but your pain. That's 916-467-7764. Check out symmetryforhealth.com. Pain gone, naturally.
Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat.
Well, we're going to rock the boat today for you because do you get the holiday blues? Can your creative spirit perhaps help? Well, Ray Luskan says being down doesn't have to take over your life. Now, Ray is a creative activist, and we're going to tell you about that and what that means, and tell us that people who are down in the dumps at holiday time can brighten their own hearts and lives by tapping into their own inner creative spirit. Now, Ray is founder of Art and Soul Connections and The Winning Adventure. Ray, nice to have you with us on the show.
Nice to be here. I'm so glad I could do this, especially around the holidays here. You know, we're so close that it's people need help, and I want to give them some tools and techniques that they can use to make their lives better over the next few days.
Now, are you talking about, which is great, by the way, thank you, but when you say holiday blues or being down in the dump, are we talking about something that's mental or physical or both?
Well, it could be both. I guess it all, I know long time ago now. I've been divorced for quite a while, but the first time I went through the holidays, it was Thanksgiving. My kids were with their dad, and I sat through a movie, and I cried. I mean, I cried and cried and cried. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt so overwhelmed. And I went to a 12-step meeting then, and they said, do something for somebody else. So my passion is about creativity, is about art and things like that. And so it's like I went to the equivalent of a Michael's or Dick Blick's, and I bought a bunch of art supplies. And coloring books and crayons and all sorts of glitter and glue and all sorts of things that I thought would be fun to take to the children who are stuck in the hospital.
Oh.
And so at Christmas time, that's what I do. And I've been doing this for 20 years now. And it makes me feel great. And the kids get something new and shiny that they can do. And it's very simple. It's about, you want to feed everybody's soul. And as a person, and so whatever people are doing, and I always say that art and service really saved my life. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to bring to people.
Now, when you say creative spirit, what do you mean by creative spirit?
Okay, creativity does not mean you have to be a fine artist.
Good.
So often when people, I use the word creative. Oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw a stick figure with a pencil. I said, it doesn't matter. That's not what it's about. It's about, when I talk about creativity, it's tapping into the wonder of childhood, that part of your soul that sometimes we sort of tamp down. We used our imagination as children. They've done study. Every child up to the age of about 5, 98% of them were in this big, bold, beautiful arena of their mind. They'd play astronaut, sheriff, fire person, doctor, whatever they wanted to do. And they played with their role of imagination. And then somewhere, as they got older, teachers and good, and they are very well-meaning people, said, oh, sit in your seat, stop daydreaming, cows aren't purple. And so we sort of shut down that wonder, that piece of that we are all creative. Mm-hmm. And it takes different forms. Some of us are creative in the way we dress, the way we present ourselves, our homes, that perfect accessory, that one toy, or, the way you paint your house. It can be the way you parent, or in the workplace. It's how do you handle a difficult situation. So creative is a term of creative thinking as well as creative actions.
Well, it can also be, you're talking art, but it could be music, it could be business,
Exactly.
whatever.
Dance, theater,
and
right.
Don't you hate it when people say, "But I don't have any talent"? Yeah, you do. You just have to find it.
Right, exactly. And it's about being curious. It's allowing yourself to go and be curious. What do I want to learn?
Mm-hmm.
What would intrigue me? Because you never know how it's going to come back to you. Steve Jobs, when he was in college, he sort of dropped out, and he said, but I want to take calligraphy. And years later, he realized, he could use that calligraphy working on Apple. Who knew? He didn't know. He just wanted to follow his passion.
Absolutely. And it's so funny, too, because when you think about what you want to do or how you want to do it, you got to open up the possibilities. And I think people kind of close themselves down. Well, it's the holidays, so what I need to do is decorate and do this and do that. Well, maybe that's not your thing. And so what? It doesn't have to be what everybody else does.
Right. I think that everybody needs to create their own fun and fabulous treasure chest for the holidays.
Absolutely.
So really think about what brings you joy. Maybe you want to knit something. Maybe you just want to take out crayons and color. Women, adult coloring books are the rage everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a great stress releaser. And, they say if you're involved in an activity where you just lose time like that, it releases endorphins. It lowers your blood pressure. It lowers your cortisol levels, and you feel great.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because when we talk about art, this just jumped into my mind, and I had to share it with you. I went to an art show. This was maybe a year or two ago. And I went up to this canvas, and it was all white. And I went, so what's on the canvas? It's just all white. And then on the bottom it said snowstorm. I laughed so hard. It was a snowstorm whiteout. And I go,
I love it.
If they can do that, I can find a way to do art too.
Right. And it's, there's an art to do scrapbooking. That's not my thing, but my daughter-in-law, she makes the most beautiful scrapbooks, and she always surprises me, and it's always a gift because that's not my gift, Mm-hmm. So we all have to find our own and find out what really makes us happy, and sometimes it could be, reading. Reading transports you to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
I love going to the library still. I'm one of those people. And I already got 5 books for the next 2 weeks. So, because I don't know what I'm going to be feeling, when I want to read. A historical romance, personal development. I actually got, I'm drawing a blank, Gloria Steinem's new book. I get a little of everything. And movies. I don't know about you, but this is the time of year I go to the movies. I just love it.
Well, and again, you have to open yourself up to the possibilities. Maybe you should get some books that you never would normally get, or see a movie that you normally wouldn't say, that's not my cup of tea. You never know till you see it.
Right. I love your attitude. It is. It's about opening your heart and mind. There's new possibilities, and it's about making a choice. I mean, we can all be victims, and we can all sit there and, woe is me. I'm alone for the holidays. Nobody loves me. And I'm not saying people who with physical illnesses, but there is a mindset. You can be, in a wheelchair and doing, and smile on your face, and it's that kind of mentality. I know a young man. He's not so young anymore, but a number of years ago, he was in a motorcycle accident, and he became a quadriplegic, and yet he found ways to give back. I mean, he goes out and he talks about his life. Going from this to this, and there are so many, and that's the biggest gift I think we give each other if we take the time to listen to everybody's story, because we all have something.
Sure.
We all have an interesting story inside of us, and we're so busy, especially during the holidays, being busy wrapping gifts and doing those things, that we forget. Sometimes the best gift is your time.
Well, and the other thing, too, obviously, like you said, sometimes it's illness and, sickness in the family, death in the family, that type of thing. But you know what? Even with sickness in the family, it's a proven fact that in some hospitals, they actually show some of the old Abbott and Costello or Three Stooges.
Laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
Norman Cousins proved that, and it is. And also hospitals do art projects, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, in my book, The Creative Activist, I interviewed a woman. She was a nurse at the time, and she brought the first arts and medicine program to a children's hospital called Shands Hospital in Florida. and she started doing just painting because she was in a lot of pain. She had gone through a terrible divorce, and she just couldn't seem to work her way out with talk therapy. And she said, I'm going to try something new. She didn't even know how to hold a paintbrush, and she said, I'm going to do it. And she found such release and pleasure and healing in it that she said, you know what, I need to bring this to the hospital. And so this hospital, you can find artists and musicians and people, performers, clowns, walking the halls, working with people.
Now, in the book, The Creative Activist, how do you get people started?
Well, I really believe we need to start thinking about what is the legacy we want to leave. So what are how do you want to touch someone's life? What is the difference you want to make? What magic memories, and that's part of the holidays. Think about what you could do for someone else. What is the memory you'd like to leave them? Rather than thinking about ourselves all the time, in that sense, I think that's the way to start. And reflecting on, we get to the end of our lives, and what is it that you want someone to say about you?
That's exactly. Well, it's so funny because we hear periodically stories of kids who take their presents that they got at Christmas time. Maybe they keep one present and then they give all the presents away. That is going to be a monumental memory for them, much more than all the toys that they've got, and they won't even remember what they got the next year.
Right. There are all those moments. We each have opportunities all the time to do that. And it's a way we as adults treat people, and it's a model. Today I was with my granddaughter and her nanny. I went to spend some time with them, and we were chatting, and this is a young black woman who's 26, single mom, 3-year-old, working 3 jobs.
Wow.
To make ends meet, and she's talking about giving back. She said, I need to be a role model for my daughter, and she's going back to school in criminal justice.
Wow.
Because she said, I want my daughter to see what is possible.
Why is it that we have this terrible fear, in especially in this country, maybe around the world, I don't know, but I can speak to in our own country. We have this fear of failure. We don't want to try anything new because, God forbid, you should fail. Well, if you don't make a mistake, how do you learn to be better?
Right. I always tell people failure is just feedback. That is really all it is. And it's an opportunity for a teachable moment for someone else, whether it's at work. So one of your coworkers fails, so what? You can use that. And I know for myself, and I share this story, that I was going to write the definitive, it was the first memoir of someone who was, this was in 1993. And it was called Odyssey of Healing, Survivor to Thriver, and I was going to share my story and my artwork of healing from sexual abuse. And I was out in Seattle, actually, and I'd gone to a conference, and I was talking to some of the leaders at the time, the personal development people. They said, your book isn't enough. You need more stories. So I said, okay. I came home. I wrote this 11-page questionnaire. I sent it out, and I got 150 responses.
Wow. And
I hand-tabulated them because this was pre-owning a computer. And every time I sat down to write that book, I couldn't do it.
Really?
It was just like, I kept the documents for 20 years. I finally just threw them away. And I didn't write that book because of fear of failure. What if, what are people going to think? I'm not good enough. Why would anybody listen to me? I'm not an expert. All the things we say to ourselves. The difference was when I wrote The Creative Activist, I was in a container of support. I had a coach. I've had several coaches over the last 4 or 5 years. And they held me accountable. They also present that idea. Failure is just feedback. What do you want to do differently? What is your vision? What is your dream? And hold that steady. And I think if we can get that in place, what is the dream that you want for 2016? And when you're feeling low, maybe over the holidays, start writing about what you would love. Just think about and just go, I would love this. I would love this. And that becomes your focus. And when those voices of failure, that tap into you, then you can say, okay, I'm going to make a date with you after I've written this or I've done this or
there you go.
Whatever.
I feel so bad because you hit right on target when you were talking about as kids. We have this imagination. You have imaginary friends. You see things that other people don't see or adults don't see. and why we can't just let them be and not slap them down by the time, they get to be teenagers. It's like, no, adults don't do that. You can't do this, and you don't really see anything. Can you imagine the possibilities for these kids if they weren't told you can't do that, or you can't be that, or you can't see that?
Oh, the world would change drastically. I mean, we would have this whole society, instead of wounded people, we'd have people living in their brilliance and feeling empowered.
Yeah.
And I think then we would, eliminate a lot of the bullying. We would eliminate the violence that's around us when people feel good about themselves.
And, of course, now you had abuse. You say you were abused?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how do you get out of that? I mean, were you really small when that happened?
I was sexually abused by my grandfather from age 7 to 13.
No kidding.
And so when I was 7, I didn't know what was going on. But by the time I was 13, I did. Excuse me. And I didn't really tell anybody. No. And I hinted to my parents, and I acted out in weird ways. But you have to remember, at that point, it was never on the news. Nobody knew anything about it.
Nobody talked about it.
Things. Right. Nobody talked about it. And so, I went through life for a long time, and finally in my early 20s, I said, I need help. I was suffering. I was a manic kind of person. I'd be dancing on tabletops at college or hiding in my room writing death poetry. I knew I was in serious trouble.
No,
so I dropped out of college as a senior. That did not go over well with my parents.
I bet not.
I did go back, and I did get a master's degree as well. But at that time, I was the only one home, and I went into talk therapy for the first time. And I was in and out of talk therapy for a long time, and they were very, very kind, and they got me to survive. Because there were moments I just wanted to die. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I felt like I was worthless and defective, and it has a lot of consequences in the way you interact with people. It has consequences physically as well and emotionally. And I survived, and I got married, and I had 2 wonderful kids, and then I went into this really severe depression. About 6 months, I just could not get out of bed every morning. I mean, I got my kids off school, crawled back in bed, and curled up in fetal position. And then I get up and I eat pints of ice cream and cookies to numb me, And then I made a choice. I literally made a choice. I am going to die, or I'm going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to heal. And I went on this personal development kick. I called myself a workshop junkie. I traveled all over the country going to healers at that point. Anything that just allowed me to feel better. And journaling was a big part of that. I started with scribbles and doodles. It was about, and it was amazing. When I started to write, and I started with a gratitude list. Every day I wrote 3 things I was grateful for, and sometimes they were the same thing every day. Okay, the sun came out, my kids are healthy, that kind of thing. Or then I'd have a win list. So the win may, I washed my hair today. It was a struggle on some days to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that started me to feel better. Then the scribbles, because there's a process. When you release this, they call it somatic response. We hold on things in ourselves. And I started to feel better. And it was like, oh, my word, here's something new. And I kept searching and exploring, and I all of a sudden I was feeling great, and people started asking me, so what are you doing different? And then I realized I had to start sharing, and I had Art and Soul Connections. I used process, the art of process, simple art and writing activities, and I worked with kids and families and abused women for a very long time. And then I realized I wanted a bigger stage to be able to talk about how we can use the arts for social change, how we can start new conversations that awaken hearts and minds so that we can create a world where people are safe and they're taken care of and they're revered and loved.
Isn't it amazing? I don't know how you feel about it, but it seems like, I don't know, how old are you?
I am 65.
Okay, I'm 69.
Okay.
And it's like, I look around the world today, the world around me. I can't look at everything going on, but what's around me. And it just seems so depressed and unhappy and not fulfilled. And that makes me so sad because I want to change that. I want to make change for them too.
And that's what you're doing with your radio show. So you are doing it. And you have this broad, fabulous base of people who listen in. And I believe in the ripple effect, that, just as if a butterfly can cause a hurricane, your voice out there, the guests that you bring, that's what you do. Because that person's going to feel better, and they may tell somebody, I heard this on her show. So
there you go. Well, and hopefully that's true, because it just seems like when I was a kid and growing up and even into my 20s, 30s, and even 40s, it seemed like a happier world. But, it doesn't seem so happy anymore. It seems like everybody is striving to get stuff or power or money. And it's like, that's not what's going to make you happy. Now, maybe it's just because I realize that later on in life you realize it ain't the stuff that's going to make you happy.
Right. I know they've done studies with people who are in hospice, and none of them care about the stuff when it comes time to dying.
Yeah. You can't take it with you.
You can't take it with you. And I think the other piece of this is technology. We have this instant gratification. We have instant news, and people are bombarded. And I think they tune out some of the problems, and they become, I'm not sure apathetic's the word, but they tune out what's going on, and then they feel helpless. Or it's
overload.
To say, I can't do anything.
It's overload. I mean, you're constantly bombarded. I turn the computer off, during the day. I look at it twice a day, and that's it. Or else, I would be bombarded with all this information. My brain would explode. Seriously.
I totally get it. I won't watch the news at night for that reason. I'll watch it in the morning, but I don't watch it before I go to bed. I can't handle it.
You know what I worry about more than anything, though? The young people with their nose in their iPhone constantly. It's never everything is bombarded every single minute of the day. They've always got something coming up. They're twittering or they're tweeting or they're hashtagging. It's like, whoa, did you ever smell the roses or go into a park? I mean, come on, without your device.
I worry they don't have the ability to look somebody in the eye. They have no because they're always, they're not having conversations. So you don't learn how to read body language.
No.
You don't, there's a missing element, and I do worry about that as well.
Yeah.
I hope that, that people, there are enough of us out there that someday it will impact and they will hear that there is more to life than your iPhone.
Yeah, we have to somehow, get the message over that you should try this at least,
Right.
Try being without it for a day. You will not die. Trust me,
I know. Well, I laugh. I was in a group with one of the professors from the Art Institute here in Chicago, and he was saying, I was at a student party. I sat between two kids who were texting each other. I took one of their phones away, and they could not talk to each other.
I know. Yeah. Well, you see couples in a restaurant, and they're having dinner together, and they're texting each other. Hello? Is this something right across your face? What are you doing?
Well, I think that's the gift. You care about what people have to say, and you understand the value of everybody has a story. And unfortunately, everybody's got a secret, too. And part of it is we have to be, I'm almost thinking we need, how they used to have women's circles where we get to share, really what's going on in our lives instead of pretending. Absolutely. And that's that authenticity. And that gets back to wanting to, this life, instead of filling it up with things, we're really filling it up with love and acceptance and compassion and forgiveness.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Absolutely. And you live in the Chicago area?
I am.
Oh, okay. That's my original hometown.
Oh, I didn't know that. Where'd you live?
Actually, the south side, the tough side.
Well, I was at 8128 until I was 13.
Oh, okay.
I was in South Shore. So what tough part were you in?
Well, actually, in the Calumet City, Hammond area.
Oh, you were in the tough part.
Of course I was. I don't say these things lightly. But you know what?
No, I understand.
But you learn how to handle yourself, and you learn about life, immedately. So it's a good thing.
Right.
Now, would you have a website?
I do. It's called thewinningadventure.com.
Okay.
And if somebody wants to reach me, it's ray@thewinningadventure.com. And I have several free resources on my website. I have a visioning report, and I also have something on the Creative Activist page. It's called 50 Impact. It's 50 things you could do by yourself or through your company to make a difference. They're simple, and I think at this time of year especially, we need to think about how we can help other people.
Terrific. And the Creative Activist, I assume, is available on Amazon and all that, right?
It is.
Fabulous.
It definitely is. Barnes & Noble and Amazon.
Ray, I want to wish you a very, very happy holiday. It's going to be a great new year because we're going to get the message out there and set those vibes right.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, and I agree, and thank you so much for having me.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
That's Ray Luskan. The Winning Adventure, of course, that you can go to thewinningadventure.com. Name of the book, The Creative Activist. In the meantime, as I always say, live simply, laugh often, love deeply, and above all else, dare to dream. Talk with you next time on Poppoff.